For today's prep, we're making a fisherman's basket. We're going to be having a battered fish, some crumbed prawn cocktails, some fries, tartare sauce, just with some nice lemon and parsley garnish. So the skills we're looking at today, there's two of them really. We're looking at coatings. So we're going to be looking at dry coating and a wet coating. So the dry coating is our crumb for our fish. So we've done crumbing before, we've made chicken schnitzel before. So it's the same sort of process. The dry coating is means you can pick it up, it's nice and dry, a dry outer layer. It can be stored really easily for several days in the fridge and then deep fried. Whereas the wet coating, the coating needs to be applied as just before it's cooked. So that's a batter coating. And the batter we're going to be using today is flour and soda water, as it's a really light batter. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out what we're going to cook first between, do we do our fish or do we do our tartare sauce? So I'm going to be doing the tartare sauce first, as it's more hygienic to serve the vegetables, to use my knife and equipment of vegetables, because there's going to be no contamination, compared to once I start doing the fish, I only want to work on the fish. Okay, so for my tartare sauce, I've got 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise. This is store-bought mayonnaise. We're not going to make our own for this. We've got a small bunch of parsley leaves. So we're going to be using fresh, flat leaf parsley. You don't use the stems, you just pick off the leaves. So I'll just quickly do that now and throw my waste into the bin. We're going to be using 1 small gherkin and 1 small pickled onion. So first off for this, I'm going to be getting my gherkin and I'm just going to chop the ends off. I'm going to slice it really thin in lengthways. Then I'm going to julienne it. Then once I've julienne it, just putting it to the edge and doing a really fine brunoise. So then I'm going to use my half moon to put it into my container. Okay, next up I've got the pickled onion. Once again I'm going to brunoise the pickled onion, so slice it in half. Because it's thin, I'm just going to slice into really thin strips. Put those 2 together, and once again, finely cut it into a brunoise. Use my half moon. Scrape it off. Okay, so for the parsley, simply I want to really just scrunch it into a really small ball, get in between my fingers, really curl my fingers back, and I'm going to chiffonade that parsley finely. Chiffonade once again is paper thin slices, and then really give it a really fine chop. Then add that to the onion and the gherkin. So I've got those 3 ingredients brunoised. Going to get my mayonnaise. Add the mayonnaise in. I've got a little wedge of lemon, which I'm just going to squeeze into the tartare sauce to add to my flavour. Get the spoon. Just got a bit of the seed there. Alright, so I'm just going to add a really tiny amount of pepper. Add a small amount of salt. And just combine those. So as you can see, I've got a really nice tartare sauce. Really good thick consistency. Small brunoise chunks. I do not want large chunks in there. I'm just washing my hands. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to crumb my prawn. So, firstly, I've got 4 prawns here. The prawns still have their shell on and their heads. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to remove the head of the shell, remove all of the legs and the back shell, but I'm going to leave the tail intact. Okay, so in order to do that, I've got my blue chopping board. Blue is for seafood. I'm going to start on my garbage bowl here. So I'm just going to pull the head off. I'm going to pull the legs off, and that helps me get the back off. So I've kept the very bottom part of the tail on, as well as the tail. Now the next thing I'm going to do is using a paring knife. You can also use the turning knife for this. I'm going to do a thin slice along the back, just to expose the vein at the back. Now this vein often contains sand, all right? So this is its intestines. So we simply pull out that vein there and we throw it in the bin. So I'm going to do that right now for all 4 of my prawns. Okay, so now that I've de-shelled all my prawns and removed the poo vein, what I want to do is I want to butterfly my prawn. So butterflying means I want to take this chunky flesh part and slice it in half so it opens out like a butterfly, but it must remain intact, okay? So first off, I get my prawn and I open it lengthways on the chopping board. I might just move the camera in so you can see a bit better. Just tilt it in. Okay, so I've got my prawn on the chopping board. As you can see, it's lengthways. So from the back where I've cut into the prawn, I just want to get my paring knife and I want to cut into it, but only halfway. So what I'm actually doing, from the tail, cut in and I open it up. So you can see I've got the tail here and I've opened up that flesh and it's still joined, there's no holes. You can see here I've butterflied, it's opened up, okay? So I'm going to crumb that part. So I'm just going to lay those prawns out and just do them all exactly the same as what I've just done there. What butterflying does, it helps them cook a lot easier and a lot quicker as well. Okay, so now that I have butterflied my prawns, I'm going to get my crumbing mixture ready. So once again, a crumbing mixture consists of flour, egg wash. Egg wash has 1 egg and 1/4 cup of milk, and breadcrumbs. So I've got about half a cup of flour, half a cup of breadcrumbs here, and then I've just got a container to put my prawns in. So I get my prawn, I use a wet hand, dry hand method. So I get my dry hand, I place the prawn in. Now I'm going to hold the prawn tail. I'm going to hold the prawn tail out of it so I don't get it wet. Just dunk it into the egg wash now. And now dunk it into the crumbs. I'm going to dunk it back in the egg wash for a double coat and back into the crumbs one more time. Okay, so on the tail there is no breadcrumbs. I'm just going to do that for all of them now. Okay, so now I've done my dry coat on all my prawns. I'll just put a bit of the excess breadcrumbs just over the top, just to help keep them dry until they're ready to cook. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to get organised is my fish for battering. So I've got flour, which I'm going to coat my fish in first. I've got my hokey fish fillet here, which I'm going to cut into small goujons. A goujon is a small, about 30 to 40 gram piece of fish. Okay, so in a fisherman's basket, you won't find a large, huge fillet of battered fish in there. You'll find small goujons of fish fillets to help you eat it. But first I'm going to do my coating. So my coating consists of flour and soda water. All right, the reason I'm using soda water this is that it helps make the batter really light, really bubbly, okay? So I've got just some flour here. I've got about half a cup and the same amount of water. Now I'll just whisk in the soda water. And it slightly fizzes as I whisk it. So we combine it in so there's no lumps. A bit more. And I simply add it to my tray. Okay, so for my fish goujons, I've got one large fish fillet here. And what I'm going to do is simply follow the shape of the fish. As you can see, it's already starting to separate. Okay, this is where the fish fillets join. So I'm going to just cut them at the nice points there. So I'm going to have 4 nice fish goujons out of this. I'm going to follow that line there. 1 fish goujon. 2 fish goujons. And 3 fish goujons. Okay, these are simply going to be placed into the flour, rolled around, all of them together, and I'm going to batter these very last minute as they go into the deep fryer, so I won't put them into the batter. Okay, so I've got my deep fryer area set up, so I do not have to move away from my deep fryer when I start cooking. Okay, it's very important that you stay with your cooking, so wherever it is, whether you're on the stove top, oven, or deep fryer here, or salamander, you make sure you stay with your equipment. So I've got my tray here with some paper towel ready to absorb any excess fat once my chips, prawns and fish finish cooking. But now I'm going to decide, what do I want to cook first. So with my 3 ingredients, I've got chips, prawns and fish. Now I'm going to start cooking my chips first because they're big chunky fries and they're frozen, so they're going to take a few minutes to cook. But and then I'll add my prawns in at the last minute because the prawns are only going to take a few minutes. I'm going to do my fish very last because as I add the coating of the batter and I dip it in, some batter's going to come off and it's going to really put some, not contaminations, but put some mess into the water. So I don't want to add the chunks of batter that's fallen off. I don't want that to go through my fries and my prawns. So I'm going to lift up my basket. The deep fry is on 180 degrees Celsius, perfect temperature for deep frying. I put my chips in gently and I stand back slightly just in case of splashes, and I lower my fries into the oil. So what I'll do is I'm just going to give this a good basically minute or two to see when it's going to cook, and then I'm going to add my prawn cutlets. Prawn cutlets, they're really not going to take long to cook because I've already butterflied them. They're a very small amount of flesh to cook, so it won't take too long. I'm just giving it a bit of a jiggle so the fries all separate in there and cook evenly. So with any sort of deep fried food, I'm looking for a really nice golden coloured texture when it's finished cooking. Okay, nice and golden. And the cooking speed always depends on the thickness of the food that you're cooking. So now that these chips have been cooking about 2 minutes, they're about halfway there, I'm going to add my prawn cocktails. So I'm just going to use my tongs to pull them out, so I'm not going to contaminate my fingers at this stage. And I'm going to place my prawn cocktails just gently in with my chips. 30 more seconds and these are done. Okay, so you can see the prawn is nice and golden, the crumbs are nice and golden, and we've got a lovely bright orange tail that you can see there. So these are now ready to come out. So first off, I lift it up and I put it on the rack, allow any excess oil to drip off. Then I lift the rack and I tilt it to one corner and further allow excess oil to drip off into the oil. And then I place the chips into my tray with the paper towel. So next thing I'm going to do is the messy part. Okay, so I'm going to batter my fish goujons now. So just one at a time. I just take them out of the flour, just with my fingers. I place it in. Oh, actually, I'll put them all into the batter now. So I bury the fish, completely coat the fish in the tempura batter, and I lower it into my oil, and I have to hold it with my fingers. So I just put about half of it in and just hold it. Now it won't spit at me, I won't burn myself. And what I actually wait to do is I wait for the first part of the coating to cook, because then it will float, and then I can slowly just drop the rest of it in. Now if I drop it in straight away, the fish will sink to the bottom. It will actually attach itself. The batter will attach itself to the basket of the deep fryer, and it will sit on the basket and burn at the bottom. And also when you try to get the fish off it, you will lose half of your coating, half of the nice batter. It'll be stuck to the basket. So we hold it in there just for about 10 seconds. I can feel it floating, and then I let it go. 2 more. Now as I try and put the fish in as well, I always try not to have it touch the other fish as well, because it will stick to them too. And we drop it in. Just allow that to cook. I'm just going to go wash my hands. Don't worry about it, it's all good. It's almost done. It's the Wi-Fi to choose that real sweet. So as they're floating in the oil like this, I'm just going to turn them over so they cook really evenly on all sides, because they won't turn themselves over, so you've got to get the time to do that yourself. Okay, so the fish is now cooked. I'm just going to turn this off. Once again, let it drain. I'll lift these out gently and place them to the side of the paper towel. And now we're ready to present. Okay, so I'm ready to present this dish now. So I've got my chips, my fish, my prawns. I've got some green parsley and some lemon cheeks, and I've got my tartare sauce. So I'm just going to put my tartare sauce into the ramekin. I'm just going to make sure I season all of my fish and chips. So chips go in first at the bottom to make sure it gives the dish height. Then I'm going to angle my fish. And my prawns. I'm just doing 2 each because what I've cooked is enough for 2 people. Small amount of parsley as garnish. A cheek of lemon. To the side. So with tartare sauce. So what you see now is perfectly presented. Little fisherman's basket, dry crumbed prawn cocktails, wet crumbed tempura battered fish with fries, tartare sauce and lemon wedges. Perfect.